Okay, well, tough conversations with positive outcomes. You know, I just thought about something and I said, I wonder if people think this is about tough conversations with your buyers and sellers. It's not. It's about your team members, if you read the description on there. So, let me start. These are, of course, our sponsors. They want us to show you those. So before I start this, actually, I should have backtracked. How many of you are team leaders? Ooh. Well, almost everybody. And how many are, big ass team, sorry, big team leader. Yeah. And how many of you are team leaders that have had difficult conversations with your team members? I think almost everybody should have. But here's the tough question, and I hope he'll be truthful about this, but how many of you have needed to do these tough conversations, but didn't do them or were afraid to do them? And so, for what reason did you not do it?
I have an employee who has been with us for 20 years. And
Cool.
She's like family, and it's just hard. It's just hard to address somebody. It's easier to address somebody that doesn't have longevity in your company, I think, than somebody, when you've been together 20 years, it's a strong bond. I've spent more time with her than I've spent with my family in the last 20 years because of work, and it's hard. She's hit her ceiling. I know she can do more, but it's hard to go, my expectations are now here. You do really good, but my expectations are here. I could do that to somebody that's 2 or 3 years with me. Yeah.
Well, hopefully this will help a little bit. Who else had that?
I did. I have a hard time with a female versus a male.
Ooh, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
For what reason do you think?
I don't know. Confrontation with a male is not a big deal at all. But a woman is. I don't know if I inherited that or what that is, but
Could be.
it's a little tougher.
That's very interesting. Never thought I'd get that. Yeah. Anybody else? Tough conversations? So the thing is, 69% of CEOs, team leaders have a tough time even bringing these topics up to people. They don't want to have them. Tough conversations are not easy to have. And 37% of the managers said that they're uncomfortable because of the confrontation. I mean, nobody wants confrontation. I don't care who you are, depersonality or whatever, nobody wants confrontation. I don't think that's something that anybody is really comfortable with. But, and Tim Ferriss said that a person's success in life can usually be determined by the number of uncomfortable conversations they have or are willing to have. And that goes for business, that goes for your marriage, that goes for your kids, your friends, whatever. There's tough conversations in every walk of life. But in business, of course, the gap between where you are today and where you want to be is going to be in the number of uncomfortable conversations. You cannot be a successful team leader if you won't have those conversations. And truly, really, let me get this over with. So it's not as difficult as you think. I'm not saying that it's easy. You'll see in the next slide, but it's not as difficult as you think. Now, let me tell you a funny story about the slide over here, because I had a different word in there. And one of my team members, I was in the conference room and I was kind of looking over my slides, and she walked in and she saw the slide, but the word that I had in there, instead of the word difficult, I had the word hard. So that in combination with that picture, it's not as difficult as you think. It's not as hard as you think. She said, "What are you talking about? What are you going to be talking about there?" I said, "Oh my gosh, I must change that word immediately." So, since we want to keep this PG, we'll just move on. Yeah, nobody said it was easy. We're not born to do these conversations. It is a difficult thing to do. You have night sweats, you're not sleeping well at night, you're almost throwing up because you don't want to have them, but you know that you do have to have them. But the number one skill that anyone can have as a CEO is to be able to be adept at these. They're still going to be uncomfortable. I'm not saying that they're not going to be uncomfortable, but you will get used to them. You know, it's like a muscle. You keep working it and you'll know if you'll follow a little plan that I have here to be able to do them a little bit more successfully than what you are. But what you don't want to do is not do them, and you'll see that here. So it's just essential that you have to do it no matter what kind of personality you are. Not everyone is a high D personality if you're a leader. There are a lot of leaders who is not a high D in here and is a leader. Are you all Ds? Really? Yeah, that's usually the case. Yeah, I should say who's a high D. I could guess almost everybody is. So the consequences of not having them are worse. The consequences of not having them are actually putting the whole team in a position where you are going to have people more upset than not upset, because you have to understand that there's a difference between short-term discomfort and long-term harm. I mean, you're causing harm to the entire team when other team members are seeing that, hey, I think she had that talk with me. I see that what's his name didn't get 4 out of 5 listings, and I listed all of them. How come he's not having a talk with? Sometimes they know, sometimes they don't. We have a small team, so it seems like everybody knows everything about what's going on out there. So the main thing, though, we had someone here earlier that said, and you said it too, you're afraid. You're afraid to hurt their feelings. You don't want to have, especially with someone, that's been with you that long. That's one thing. You're also afraid that they're going to leave if you don't want them to leave. Some of them, you may want them to leave. So you may want to have. Those are actually easier, because if you're about to fire someone, it's kind of easier than if you want them to stay on and you have to have this conversation. So that's not so good. But you can't sweep them under the rug. No matter what, you can't do that. That's really not good in the long term, and it creates a lot of dysfunction and so on. So just, if you can just remember, it's a little short time of discomfort, but I bet you it would work out better if you do have that conversation, and you're going to be surprised probably that ain't so bad, as Rocky would say. That's not going to be that bad once you do have the conversation. I thought about this morning when I was thinking about this. What happened to Will Smith a couple of months ago? I mean, yeah, there was a temporary, that was all in 2 or 3 minutes that all happened, where some overreaction where the guy goes up and slaps another man in the face. I mean, how can you even, I don't know how that came about, but no matter what did it do to him? What did it do to his career? I mean, besides being banned for 10 years from the Oscars, it's perhaps, and I think, death to his career at this point. Who's going to cast him? Who's going to want to dare to put in $1 million production and put him in there only for, not having anyone show up because of what happened here? He ruined his life because of this momentary lapse of whatever he had that had him go about and do this. And that's kind of what you have here. Just a little discomfort in the beginning will be better in the long run. It's kind of the same, but it's not the same. But, and does anyone remember that he did get Best Actor in all of that? Nobody remembers that. Kind of got swept under the rug because of what happened there. But a little bit of stuff can cause, one little mistake or one non-communication can cause long-term harm, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So the third thing is, of course, you have to identify the problem first. Sometimes it's not so easy, and sometimes it's very clear cut. I mean, if somebody's late all the time, that's a simple thing. They can't argue with you about that, and that's probably not a difficult conversation to have. There are more difficult conversations to have, personality things or issues that they had with the seller or another team member or whatever. Those are the messy ones, and those are the ones that are going to be the ones you have to deal with 90% of the time, and that's why we avoid them. So unfortunately, they're there, but they have to be dealt with still. But before you enter this lovely meeting that you're about to have, you have to have a goal or an outcome. With every meeting, you have to have a goal or an outcome. You can't just walk in and say, well, let me see how it all works out. You have to walk in and know which direction is this going in. Am I going to let them go, or am I going to see if we can work something out? And constantly throughout the whole meeting, that's what you're working towards. So that if it veers off somehow, and it will veer off when they start defending themselves and so on, you have to get it back on track to where it should be. And that is whatever the goal or outcome you want of it. So this is the framework of it all. There is... Part one is the 6 E's, which is really your part and how you're going to relay this to them. And then there's a second part, which is more the interactive part between you and this person. And this is whether it's a realtor or a team member or whatever. The first thing is really about establishing the tone. You do want to relax them a little bit. The tone is all about, for example, if you start out with saying, hey, Rebecca, I just want to let you know there's a couple of things that we want to talk about today. Before we start, how's the family? How was your weekend? How are things going? Or if it's a more serious thing, you want to say, hey, Rebecca, there's a couple of things that we want to talk about today. This is pretty serious, so I want to get right to it. So you're kind of setting it up that way. And then you're eliminating the assumption for them to ease them and make them feel more comfortable even more by perhaps saying something like, letting them know really the direction that it's going in again. For example, if you think in terms of, again, this is either serious or not serious, so that they know that your job is on the line and this is what's going to happen, so we really have to straighten out, or this is not so serious, but we just want to talk about it and see which direction we're going in, so that they're comfortable that way. And then explain the goal of the whole thing. The goal is so that you can get better, so that you can have more deals, so that you can be with the team longer, or whatever goal you want to have be the outcome of it all. And explain the problem origin. For example, if you heard something from someone, and I'll tell you a couple of examples that happened here. But if you heard something from someone, you want to say this is where it came from, or perhaps somebody told you directly. The seller contacted you and said, we have a problem with this particular, with our agent, or something is going on here. You're just relaying what the information is, basically. And then you want to emphasize the impact. The impact is how it's going to affect everybody else on the team, how it's going to affect them in the future. If I don't tell you this, then you're just going to continue to do the same thing over and over, and I didn't want you to go down that path. Or how it's affecting other team members if you're not having a conversation with them, but you had it with them, or you don't need to have it with them, but you didn't have it with them, and that's affecting the whole team somehow. If they bring down our reviews or bring down the reputation of the team, that affects everyone on the team. So you want to tell them about the impact that it's having on everyone, of course.